All right. Well, guess what, ladies and gentlemen? Blizzard has just come out with one of the biggest and craziest change lists we've ever seen, and it's already live on the ladder, which caught me completely off guard. In this, we not only have sweeping changes, some that have already been tested, some that have not, and some of the changes which have been modified slightly from the previous public test realm server. We've also got things like light tags on the Ghost. We have the biggest list of bug fixes we've ever seen, some of which really, in my opinion, shouldn't be under bug fixes, but since they actually change the way units work and do make massive impacts in gameplay, Liberator and of course Broodlord being key ones of that. But essentially there is a lot going on here, and this is either the beginning of the best arc we've had in Starcraft 2 balance in a long time, or it is the beginning of the worst arc. And that is something which we're going to talk about after breaking down these changes. I thought there'd be a bit more time testing, changing things, but looks like Blizzard wanted to rush this one through, so let's take a look and see what we've got. First of all, it says we're happy to bring 5.015 live, which contains various balance changes, bug fixes, and quality of life improvements. We want to thank all of the community contributors who provided valuable feedback during our PTR period. First up, Zerg. Spire cost reduced from 200-200 to 150-150. Pretty significant saving there. Spire build time reduced from 71 seconds to 66 seconds, so shaving 5 seconds off it. Both of these pretty sizable buffs to just make mutas a bit cheaper, a bit faster to get into. These aren't going to change the meta tomorrow, but they absolutely will increase the viability of mutas. I like these changes. Centrifugal hooks now gives +5 hit point to Banelings again. This is really good for allowing basically Zerg to do a bit better against 8 racks with Terran, and to allow Banelings to be a bit more viable against Protoss as well, which they really were not looking very viable against Protoss recently. Due to that 5 hit points being gone, they just couldn't get through Storm. Banelings was always a bit more of like a timing attack, overwhelming style. Remember that Banelings no longer can one-shot workers with +2 melee. You need +3 melee to one-shot probes. So Banelings, there was a series of nerfs to their damage versus armored units, so they do less to things like Marauders and Stalkers ever since about 2016. They reduced it 2 or 3 separate occasions, the damage versus armored units. Then they reduced the damage versus workers, so you couldn't just roll a Baneling in and pop half of a mineral line, which was kind of insane. But then they also removed the 5 hit points off of the Banelings when Baneling speed upgrade is complete. And I think that's just kind of had a compounding effect to where one of Zerg's most iconic units in StarCraft 2, one of the most used ones, players like Shin, their entire identity as a player was kind of based around that unit. It became very much an edge case unit. It became like, it was still used, but not the core unit that it had been for most of StarCraft 2's history. So I think generally a good change there. Obviously, both buffs. Microbial Shroud reduces range attacks by 50% damage. So keep in mind, guys, they are going through the Microbial Shroud change. This one is crazy. I think this is pretty unfair against Terran. I think it's huge. We'll see how it goes. I still do remember it does require an upgrade. Costs 150, takes a while to upgrade. It does cost 100 energy. It doesn't come into the game too early. If it came in straight off the Infestor with no upgrade, it would be, I would say, broken completely. As it is, there's an argument that by the time you get to it, Terran can kind of be going into Ghosts. Unfortunately for Terran, Ghosts are the only unit that does ignore Shroud, other than the Widowmine and Yamato from the Battle Cruiser. So you're looking at a situation where this spell is going to make Marines and Marauders do almost no damage. Like if they're shooting, you got to remember, we saw actually a test, and I talked about this in the last video, where basically Roaches, with the way the armor works, it's doing the 50% damage reduction and then knocking the armor off it rather than the other way around, which means you're ending up with a Roach. If it's a +3 armored Roach up against a +3 attack Marine, the Marine only does 0.5 damage a shot to the Roach when it's inside that Shroud. So as the upgrades go up, it actually is worse for the Terran player in that situation, because their upgrades are still getting cut in half, and then the armor's being applied, whereas, of course, the armor itself is not affected by that Shroud. So Microbial Shroud does absolutely wreck basic units, Marines, Marauders. It's pretty good against Siege Tanks, as it blocks half of the direct damage, but the splash damage is still complete. Widowmines, Ghosts are still great. Liberators, actually. Hydras can push through into Libs using this spell a fair bit as well. I still have the big concern with this, which I'll iterate once again, as I have in every single video. You already have Blinding Cloud that stops the Terran from attacking from range in an area. Now you have a big AoE that also reduces the range attacks by 50% in an area. Also, if they want to pull away from either of these spells, you've got Fungal Growth, which pretty much locks them in place. So having a disable on the same spellcaster that has an anti-combat spell, a you can't fight here spell, very dangerous. But it is gated behind some higher tech, so it won't be as crazy. I think this is something, the longer it goes, the better people get. There'll be a point in the early, late game where this spell just adds some amazing power against Terran. Against Protoss, I don't think this spell is nearly as impactful due to the fact that Storm can just simply go down in the same areas and obstruct it. I think it's most useful with Ultralisks against Immortals, and that's the interaction I want to see the most. Is if you're going for Microbial Shroud, can Ultras just A-move Immortals? Will that work out? I have no idea. But if you've got your smaller and medium units, I think if they just drop Storms where your Shroud is, it's not going to work out too well. Next up, we've got Protoss. Energy recharge down from 100 to 50 energy. Cooldown is a little bit faster, down from 60 to 45 seconds, so you can cast the energy recharge a little quicker. Mothership movement speed reduced from 2.83 to 2.25, so they are nerfing the Mothership, as that's been a problem. She can't be abducted or anything like that, as well as big diving in the main and recall attacks, I guess, have been kind of problematic. So it just means the Mothership is going to be a bit harder to keep her with your army and to maneuver her around quite as fast. So, you know, I was a big proponent of if we could make it so you could abduct her, but only half the distance, that would be cool. Turns out I think that was too complicated to do in the editor without potentially breaking a lot of things. Speaking of breaking things, guys, Psystorm has been changed from 80 damage over 3 seconds to 140 damage over 6 seconds. A very marginal DPS decrease, 26.7 down to 23.3. I mean, I don't know what that percentage drop is, but it's like just over 10%. DPS reduction, I think it's like 12% maybe. But you've got double the duration, and radius is up from 1.5 to 2, which is crazy. Thankfully, there is at least a nerf in here. Range is reduced from 9 to 8, so the cast range of the storm itself. So that means to cast to the midpoint of the storm, you have to get one range closer to it. You used to be able to cast at 9, now 8. However, effective damage radius is not nerfed by a full range. Why? Because the radius went up by 0.5, sorry. So that means if you cast in the midpoint, you get an effective plus 0.5 range. So the overall cast range of Storm is reduced by half. So you can, by half from what it used to be. So if we think about it, if you've got 2 range, that adds 1 effective range. Because if you cast in the middle, you can actually do damage like further ahead, right, to the edge of the storm. So you can still do storm damage to an opponent from 9 away. It used to be you could do it from 9 plus half of the radius, 0. So it used to be 9.075. Sorry, 9.75 range. I'm misspeaking. So it used to be with storm you could... Okay, so to put it simply, guys, basically you just add a half of the radius for effective range. Used to be 9 plus half of 1.5, so it was 9.75. Now it's 8 plus half of 2, which is just 9. So you are losing 0.75 effective cast range. That's relatively impactful. That does make a difference. I've seen a few people throwing the numbers around very incorrectly on this. I saw someone on Reddit basically make out like, oh, it's the same cast range. It used to be 9, and now it's 8 plus half of 2, which is also 9. So the cast range is the same. And I'm like, excuse me? You've forgotten to add the radius range on the first part of that equation. What are you doing? So anyways, very, very basic maths, which of course, as always, gamers are getting very confused about. And this is someone who absolutely sucks at counting numbers, guys. I very much enjoyed my English and my history classes, did not enjoy doing the maths or the science, because you couldn't just bullshit your way through the tests. Despite that, I am a little concerned at how bad some people on Starcraft Reddit are at counting the numbers. Anyways, Dark Templar blink attack delay reduced from 0.75 to 0.25. Surveillance mode now reveals the observers. That is staying in the game. Wow. Okay. Okay. I mean, you just don't use that at high level, which is fair enough. This is really going to punish Hero. Hero's observers are just going to be like running to his army all the time. That'll be funny. Surveillance mode increases vision from 13.75 to 15. Okay, you still get this massive surveillance mode increase. Though the weird thing about this is I remember I was using this in the PTR. You can like go up outside their base and set up, and you can see them before they get anywhere near you. So like you can actually, at high level players, this is a buff actually. Because what you're going to do is you're going to set this up outside their base and you're going to see their army with so much time to prepare. You can always unsiege it and run it away before they get to your guy. So this is actually going to give Protoss more vision than they ever had at the highest level. Whilst obviously making surveillance mode reveal the observer will nerf noobs a little bit. You can put it so far off over the cliff or the dead space, they might even see it and not be able to do anything about it sometimes. I don't know why this change here exists. I'm going to be critical of this. I think if you want to nerf it, because I do think, hey, why do you get an invisible unit? Just remove bonus range. It can stay invisible when it goes into surveillance mode, but it keeps the same vision as it normally has. People were always like, I remember when they first put this change in, it was like, cool, we want to make it so, you know, Protoss players who don't know how to use control groups, because, you know, we've Protoss is kind of the race which has got the easiest mechanics in terms of like we built in a warp gate hotkey. Now we're going to make it so your High Templar have an auto attack. Now we're going to make it so your observers also don't get F2'd into your army. But they were like, oh, we're also going to give it this big vision increase. And that was always, I think, the problem with the surveillance mode was you could set it up in a position and it allowed, you know, you to control your army really easily because it wouldn't come with you. But it also gave you bonus vision. Now it's giving even more vision. I actually think this is going to be problematic as time goes on. I think at the highest level, this is going to be super abusable. Purification cooldown reduced from 21.4 to 17 seconds for the Disruptor guys. So the Disruptor is going to shoot faster, but it looks like they've removed the bonus radius on the Disruptor. Because remember previously it was the Disruptor had extra radius. It went up from 1.5 to 1.75 and it shot faster. This case, it's just shooting faster. Lastly, my favorite, guys, Stasis Ward duration reduced from 170 to 90 seconds. A lot of the time people putting down Stasis Wards just willy-nilly. There wasn't a lot of intention. It was just, oh, you just spam these everywhere. And they last so long. Often when they go off, you forgot you even put that one there. You just chuck them down because why not? Did this need to happen? Not necessarily, but of course with the energy recharge change, it is real. What I would have loved to see added to this list, guys, is a reduction to hallucination vision range, because with this change, off of a single energy recharge, you are still going to get 2 hallucinations by the 4-minute mark. Because if you make a sentry first in PvT, guess what? Energy recharge puts you from 50 to 100 energy. You cast a hallucination straight away, go scout with it. About 35 seconds later, you've got enough energy to do another hallucination. Bam. So you get 2 hallucination scouts by about 4 minutes. It used to be you could do 3 hallucination scouts in about the same period of time with the old energy recharge. Still very good vision, not quite as ubiquitous. I still think, hey, let's maybe just nerf the vision a little bit. Just knock a bit of sight range off those hallucinated units. Because at the moment they see so very far. And against unupgraded Marines, Queens, like the very basic anti-air at the start of the game, they can so often see everything. And not only that, I mean, at the moment, we often see the hallucinated Phoenix flies straight over a Cyclone, still scouts the whole base before the Cyclone can kill it. That, for me, I don't know. I just wish there was a bit more play about the Protoss had to be a bit more clever with the angle he came in from the hallucination. And there's a bit more of a mini game of the Terran and the Zerg trying to intercept it and block it a little bit. Or, you know, having the building placed in an odd position where, oh, they normally don't see this part of the base when they fly through. I just think the hallucination sees too much, and there's chance for more interaction, which is what Starcraft's built upon there. I think that would be a good change. Other than that, though, overall, pretty happy that energy recharge is getting nerfed. I think Storm's insane. Even with less cast range, I just think that's crazy. Like, what do we even... I don't know. Almost double the damage over 6 seconds. This is just pure insanity. Yeah, I really hope that gets nerfed. I hope we get another patch. The fact that this is live tells me hopefully Blizzard just looked at the stats and said, hey, no one's testing the PTR. Let's put it live and then use that as our testing and do a follow-up patch in a few weeks. If they don't patch the game for another 9 months, Anyways, let's finish reading the notes before we talk more about that. Siege tank can no longer be abducted when in siege mode. Viking cost reduced from 150.75 to 125.75. No idea why Vikings are cheaper. Don't know why that was needed, but okay. Drilling Claw's effectiveness increased from 1.07 to 0.71. That's just a revert of an old nerf on the Widowmine Drilling Claws upgrade. Fine with that, whatevs. Hyperfly, I don't think this really impacts people that much, you know, like whatevs. I guess if you go for a Drilling Claws rush, your Widowmines burrow a little faster. But remember, Widowmines still have reduced splash radius, so they're not going to blow up mineral lines as well as they once did anyway. Hyperflight rotor's research time decreased from 100 to 79 seconds. That's cool. Make Banshee speed. Used to be 2 minutes to upgrade. They made it 100. Now we're making it 79. I don't know why that upgrade took so bloody long to go. To begin with, I get they're a very fast unit. They're very expensive and slow to build as well. So I don't think that's a problem. Liberator sight reduced from 10 to 9. Okay, now that's a big one, guys, because I think, even though it was never listed in the patch notes, that this is paired up with the Liberator losing its circle vision, you know, the vision of the circle where it sieges up. This is, of course, paired with a bug change, so the Liberators will siege way quicker, especially when you have multiple libs. It used to be they took forever to siege. If you'd give them all orders, they'd all kind of like drift around and have like a bit of a delay before they would siege up. Now you can just unsiege them, siege them all in a different angle, unsiege them, siege them all in a different angle. Liberators are much more agile and they're going to get in position way better, but they will be way worse for harassment. This is both a buff in one area in terms of their responsivity and a big nerf in another area. Someone, was coming at me in my stream the other day going, why aren't you talking about how broken this is? And I was like, I don't know. It is absolutely a massive nerf on one side, is absolutely a big buff on the other side. I remember thinking, well, this is just a big unnecessary nerf. Then I found out about the behavior fix for the Liberator, and I went, oh, I think it might be a big buff, actually. I don't know. We need more games to actually test this out. What I will say, it is an untested. It's a bit of an unknown. So I know there's people that want me to scream value judgments with little experience. That would be a good way for me to erode trust, because it would be me talking out of my arse, and that's something I do sometimes, but we're going to try to keep it to a minimum, yeah? So that you guys can actually trust what I say rather than think, oh, that's the guy that just screams emotionally at his camera because he's angry that numbers are changing in his video game, and yet he's too lazy to actually figure out how they're changing. Speaking of which, this is a change that I've been wanting even from the previous patch. Ghost now has a light tag, but its supply reduced back to 2. That's going to help Terran in the late game a bit. I do think there's more Ghost changes that I would personally like to see, where we reduce a whole bunch of things. Actually, we can. Snipe leash range. I would love the leash range on Snipe to be a bit less so units can disengage a bit more, but I also think Snipe should not be cancelled upon taking damage. This would allow the Ghost to be not as long range gunning stuff down in terms of, oh, we started sniping, you can't get away. But it also wouldn't be in this weird situation where if the opponent jumps on you, the ghosts don't get the snipes off. If you're a bit slow to react, they're effectively useless. And that's always been the big frustration with the Ghost in my mind. I personally wouldn't mind a big EMP redesign as well. One of the weird balance factors is like Protoss often stabilizes against Zerg because they can make Archons and they're a good combat unit. They can't do that against Terran very viably because of EMP being so incredibly effective against Archons, not to mention the rest of the army. But that's something we didn't, that's highly experimental, needs a lot of testing. And I can understand. I'm not going to be like, oh, you idiots, why didn't you do that? But I would have loved to see these changes, Snipe not cancelled, especially for like non-Clem players. It's frustrating not getting your snipes off in time, but even for the Clems of this world, they're often incentivized to hide behind planetary fortresses in endgame and really like drag it out and be very turtly. Don't get me wrong, Clem will still attack with his Ghost quite a bit, but like if you look at Maru, once he gets to that stage of the game and he just sits behind his planetaries and plays so slow and methodically, because he knows if his Ghosts get caught outside of static defenses and they get hit by a fungal or get hit by some banelings and the snipes get interrupted, they're not going to get any snipes off for the whole battle, and these units just aren't that useful. I think these are okay changes generally, but we'll see how it goes. All right, guys, there's also this giant list of bug fixes, which is kind of crazy. I don't think I can read the whole list, but you guys can check it out yourself. I need to go through and test it. What's interesting is obviously this patch has gone through pretty quickly. We know that Blizzard doesn't have a lot of expertise in StarCraft anymore, and they're trying to figure things out as they go. Not to mention, even when there was like guys who'd been working on StarCraft for a decade, every patch had bugs, unintended bugs. The editor's complicated, the game is complicated, there's many layers of detail that people don't always understand. As a result, it is what it is, and sometimes things just end up breaking. So let's talk about some of the things that's in the 14 hours since this has gone live that have been broken. First up first. All right, so first up, guys, we have about that new mothership build animation. For those who don't know, there was a bug fix where it's meant to play a cooler mothership building animation, which for some reason was just not being used in StarCraft, which everyone was excited to see. Turns out, at least sometimes it is bugged, and you are just getting this weird balloon graphic above your Nexus, which is hilarious. Apparently, this is what it's meant to look like. Let me rewind this. So apparently that's what it's meant to look like. It's this big glowing white ball, and then you can kind of see like the little holographic outline of the mothership, and then it pops out, which is pretty cool. There was definitely a little bit of a glitch when it popped out where like that thing shot up into the sky. I don't know if that's intended or not. That's pretty cool. Hopefully that is what most people are seeing on the ladder rather than this thing. All right, next up, guys. Oh, Broodlords. Okay, so keep in mind, big bug fix, guys, is and this is why this stuff shouldn't really be in the bug fix and quality of life. These should absolutely be in the main change list. I don't know why this is written down here. Fixed an issue where broodlings could greatly delay launching or fail to launch towards their target depending on their position relative to the Broodlord. Okay, so check this one out. Basically, I've talked about this in detail. You guys can go watch my videos about, you know, they're massively buffing the Broodlord, or I was wrong about the Broodlord, but it's complicated. Those videos from a while ago can inform you on these topics. This person showed us a little side-by-side. And just to give you guys a summary, essentially it used to be that what would happen is the Broodlord, it would get to the edge of its range, the broodlings would float from the back to the front, and then only once they started launching, which there'd be this massive delay on, would the Broodlord start reloading, start making new broodlings. Whereas and this is what's happening here. And I can show you at the very start of the fight, just to like hone in on that, if you guys want. Okay, so here, you're going to see these front Broodlords are going to get in range, and just notice how what happens is the broodlings kind of shuffle to the front and then fire. Might not seem like a big delay, but it delays them recharging. With the new behavior, those broodlings, the moment they start shifting forward, the new ones will start producing, and the broodlings themselves I think will just shoot a little bit faster as well. So this is the old one. This was 20 broodlords against 10 Thors. I'm not sure if they have like a resource value of what that is, because I think broods are 4 supply, Thors are 6. So obviously that was more broods than Thors, and yet at the end of it, it was 5 Thors that survived with minimal damage. Now in the next example here, you're going to see the broodlords come in. I also saw some people saying apparently they haven't implemented this correctly. Some people said it seems like the broodlings are actually able to shoot from 12.5 range when they should only be 10.5. So apparently they've misimplemented this. To me, it does look like those broodlings are shooting very quickly and very directly. And we are seeing that just in an A move versus A move, we just went... How many broodlords was that left, guys? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. So we went from having 5 Thors left in this same battle to now we've got 9 broodlords surviving. I mean, that's insane. That needs to get looked at. That seems like it's probably wrongly implemented in some way. I don't know. I can't verify this test, but this seems absolutely nuts. Now, of course, the Reddit response, wow, a tier 3 dedicated anti-ground unit can beat half its cost in ground units while still losing more minerals and more gas. Blizzard has gone too far this time. Jokes aside, Zerg is, of course, cost ineffective by design. I like it. I mean, the Thor is meant to be the hard counter to the Broodlord. So, this is like the Thor's, yeah, this is it. There's still a counter. There's 3,000, 2,000 of Thors against 6,000, 5,000 of Broodlords. Okay, that is 5,000 against 11,000 resources. And it is a big supply differential as well, right? 20 times 4 is 80 supply versus 6 times 10, 60 versus 80 supply. And the Broodlords are incredibly expensive supply. That's fair, yeah. But it definitely does seem a bit too powerful though. Yeah. This is not what they're meant to be dealing with. So like if you look at this and people are like, well, it's good they beat them. That's good. We have more of them. But it's like Thors are the counter. If you can't counter them with Thors, what are you going to counter them with? The problem is, remember, with them attacking faster, ghosts aren't going to get a snipe off anymore before getting hit by the Broodlord, as long as the Broodlord has detection. So Broodlords can interrupt snipes now, number one. Much better. So Broodlords now beat ghosts, now beat Thors. Vikings, I've never been a great response to them. That's a huge problem. Like this seems like, I don't know, we'd need to go into the testing, and I'll be doing that over the next few days. Obviously, this is just a first look, and I'll be playing games with them. What has gone on with these Broodlords? I do not know how that difference was so absolutely massive there, but I imagine there's something wrong that's been implemented. And like I said, if we don't have a follow-up patch to fix things like this or look at them, it's going to be a really, really big issue. So hopefully Blizzard gets on top of that. Next up, guys, did you guys know that Stim got a cooldown added? So check this out. If you press Stim, look in this this bottom side. Oh gosh, sorry. So I know I was blocking it with my camera. Just look down here. So Stim, you'll see there's a little cooldown up there. Each time it presses, there's a 1 second cooldown. So if you accidentally double press it, you won't accidentally double Stim your units. Really nice quality of life. Should have been in the game since forever. I don't know why they never had that in there. That's just crazy, right? Though it does look like there's a second hotkey that it's available on. I'm not sure what that's about, the Q hotkey. All right, next up, guys, we have even more bugs. Apparently, the female ghost skins. If you run either of the female ghost skins, it works as the old ghost. So you can see here's the regular ghost, and it has a light tag. It's changed to 2 supply as well, apparently, even though the tooltip's not updated. But then the female ghost skin, or the Nova skin, does not have the light tag and is actually still 3 supply. So apparently somehow the changes have only gone through on the regular ghost skin. If you're building the other type of ghost, that's not the case. I'm not sure. I'll follow up with this stuff, but it does seem like, as you'd expect with a Starcraft and Blizzard patch, there are some pretty funny unintended results. So here we've got another one, guys. Lurkers no longer end their attack prematurely under certain conditions. So what used to happen here is if the guy runs away, you see how it stops its spines there in the midpoint, right? Whereas if it stays there, it'll keep attacking, right? Or in that case, like it ran away a bit later or whatever, right? So that's the old lurker behavior. But now we're going to see the new one. And with the new lurker behavior, even if you run out of range, it's going to finish its attack. Now, this could be a nerf in some situations, right? Where would this be a nerf? Well, if the enemy runs away, but then there's other units coming in from another side, it allows you to stop your attack and then change targets quicker. So it's a nerf in that regard. I'd say it's a buff in other regards where there's other, even though that unit moved out of range, there's other units that it's going to hit. I'd just say it's a bit of a behavior change. I have no idea if that's a buff or a nerf. Yeah. If the lurker killed a unit too close to itself, it would also occur, apparently. So the new lurkers always finish their attack, apparently. Really excited to see if that changes anything impactful. We'll need to follow up on that. Now, here we go, guys. We also had Storm as further buff from the last PTR. And, of course, they gave us the best evidence I've ever seen, which is a bunch of crappy screenshots. It's so easy to record video, even on a potato these days. This person decided to show us some ridiculous screenshots. Basically, they're saying in the old one, Banelings would get through a storm with 1 hit point. PTR, they would get through with 5 to 6 hit points. And on the live version, the Banelings would get through with 1 hit point, which means you're doing 5 more damage. Okay, so they're saying because these Banelings have +5 hit points from the upgrade, that's back in the game, just in the PTR and this version. But now the Storm does slightly more damage. Either way, the Baneling's surviving. I can't verify if they did this test correctly or not. But either way, they're saying, oh, the difference is actually it's doing 5 more total damage. You're getting 1 more tick off in this version versus what was most recently tested. Let's actually test that myself and take a look. All right, so they're going to run through an entire storm. And most of them are indeed down to 1 hit point, except a few on the edges that didn't get hit by the full storm. Okay, yeah, I mean, if that's correct, that's correct. I mean, I think Storm in general is just crazy right now. I do not think, I mean, even with the less cast range, and that is less cast range, that is very noticeable. Damn, it's a 6 zoning tool, man. It's going to be absolutely nuts. All right, guys, so we also had a tournament yesterday. The Pigstarcraft Weekly happened last night on this patch. Not the best turnout by any means. I'm overseas in Europe, so I haven't actually been casting this, and I will be back to casting it. I might get home in time to cast it next week. I might just barely be able to cast it next week when I get home. Anyway, long story short, Clem wrecked creator, Hero wrecked Clem. People were posting on Reddit going, oh, look, nothing's changed. Protoss is still Ember against Terran because, look, 1 result. I went and checked the result. I went and looked at Steadfast's beautiful commentary of this, and we saw what was perfect play from Clem. I just looked at this and said, well, clearly I think the new Storm is overpowered because that definitely affected Clem flying his medevac with 2 mines directly into 4 Stalkers. Obviously, I'm kidding. Clem played like crap. He did that, and then about a minute later, if even, he is lifting his barracks off, and it's not in position. His starport moved, which allows the Stalkers to get on top of the tank. His bio's out of positions, he loses a tank, and the game just snowballs from there, right? This game actually still ends up pretty damn close. Don't get me wrong, I do think the new Storm is a little bonkers, right? We do see at a few points in this game some crazy Storm zoning. Hero walks into it himself and actually kills a bunch of his own units. But you can see, like, these Storms are pretty damn massive AoE, slightly less cast range, slightly less DPS, but it lasts forever. I don't think that's what necessarily decided these games. I do also think because you have to get a bit closer to cast Storm, I do think Snipe and EMP will be better than ever against those High Templar. I do think with Energy Recharge being nerfed, Protoss isn't going to have a billion Storms. I think Clem absolutely could have won these games, but it just came back to, early game interactions went Hero's way. Sometimes Clem wrecks Hero, sometimes Hero wrecks Clem. Game 2, Clem tried to do a really dedicated Marine tank Cyclone push. He just pushed his tank a bit too far in front. If he sieged that back like a centimeter, just a little bit, that would have been fine. But his Marines weren't in front. The Guardian Shield does massive work, and he loses the tank, only getting a single shot off. And from there, it's a shutdown because now Blink's done. You've got no anchor to your push, and you just lose the game from it. Okay. So he's down 2-0. What happens in game 3? So in game 3, once again, Clem loses every single interaction in the game, starting from the beginning, where he starts losing Hellions to Adepts. Even though he kills an Adept here, it's not worth trading a Hellion. You want to combine these units, because as your Hellions grow in numbers, you get real power together. But instead, he starts losing Hellions. This continues throughout the early game. Like here, runs in, once again, another Hellions taking massive damage deep in the red. It gets targeted down here. That's very un-Clem-like, miss micro. Hellions achieve absolutely nothing. Oracles shut them down. So it's just a complete shutout in the early game, right? Clem just played worse than Hero in the early game. Hero got good advantages, and from there, it's a bit of a cakewalk for Mr. Hero to finish the game off. He just overwhelms him with good Blink Stalker harassment. His Oracles did great damage to the economy, and you could just see Clem's miles behind. I have absolutely zero conclusions from this. I saw a few Storms go down in games that were a little scrappy and messy, and definitely I think the Storm's better than it used to be, even though it's a bit harder to ambush with the first Storm unless you get your Prism really close to the Terran army. At the end of the day, we just saw a classic Hero Clem series, which is top tier players are still going to win or lose based off of how they play in the early game, especially when they both play very aggressive and high risk styles. All right, guys, so to sum up, I did not expect this patch to go live this soon. Is it good? Is it bad? I would say there are two possible options. If StarCraft 2 Blizzard Classic Games has said, you know what, no one's playing the PTR, or very few people, because the matchmaking's not very good on the PTR. Usually you're playing people much higher or lower rank than you. Let's just push this to live. We know it's not perfect, but we're going to follow up in 3-4 weeks, whenever it is, once we've figured out every single patch and broken thing in this, and we've really ironed it out. Because once you have everyone playing on the ladder, that is when the best testing happens, and that is when things get figured out so very quickly. Every tournament swaps over to playing this patch. Everyone starts playing it. That's the dream. Now, the nightmare is the fact that we haven't got any confirmation of that. Blizzard famously just never promises anything. We have no idea if they're going to do that or not. If they don't do any corrections, Broodlords beating Thors head-to-head, I don't know what the hell Terran's going to do there. That's crazy. Shroud does seem insanely good against Terran. I need to see. Is it actually good against Protoss? Does it allow Ultras to beat Immortals? Maybe. I don't know. I'm so curious to find out, though. I think that's going to be really interesting to see. Is Storm just broken, guys? I mean, it's such a big area of zoning. I think it's going to really make it very hard for Zerg to do timing attacks into Protoss, and it might lead to Protoss just getting to late game in a stronger position than they ever did before. So maybe Protoss is way better against Zerg now. I don't know. There are a lot of crazy things in here. I don't know why Vikings are cheaper, but we'll see what goes with that. There are so many questions. I don't think anyone's going to... I think Spire changes are going to go completely under the radar, and then at some point down the track, we're going to see a fair bit more mutas, maybe a 20-30% increase in muta games, maybe a bit more than that. It's already a very low percentage of mutalist games, so a 20, 30, 40% increase is not that big, but, it is something. I'd say probably more than that then, actually. Actually, if there's only mutas in 10% of games or 8% or something, that could easily go up to 15 or 20% given enough time, depending on the players themselves and how good they are at making it work. I do think, these are sizable buffs. You might not think they're big, but 100 resources, 5 seconds actually makes a pretty decent difference in StarCraft 2. Anyway, guys, I don't know, man. I'm glad things are changing in StarCraft and getting updated. I don't know. There's a few changes I've really Microbial Shroud of the Infestor, the unit that can lock units down, can also make them fight there. What? It's a bit confusing. Storm changing so drastically, it just seems a bit crazy. I don't know, man. I don't know. I think Terran has kind of the least exciting changes. I'm not sure what could be added. It would be cool to have like a siege tank upgrade to do less friendly fire from the campaign. Maybe be able to upgrade the little repair bots that stop your buildings from burning down or something like that. I don't know. It would be cool if Terran just had 1 or 2 more cool things just for equality's sake. As it is, though, I'm curious to see how things play out. For me personally, I'm going to be spamming libs with the new how responsive they are. I'm going to be going for like 3 base bio lib against Protoss. Who knows? I might try and go pretty quick libs against Zerg as well, just to see how it plays out, because I'm really curious to see how agile that army feels, especially if you can like do the old tactic where you pick up your whole army, doom drop in the main, siege libs on their ramp really quickly. That can be a brutal setup. If you can get the libs in there fast enough. Anyway, thanks for watching. You guys let me know in the comments what you're most mad about, what you're most happy about. Is this generally a good sign for StarCraft 2 or a bad sign? And what do you think are the most important things that need adjusting ASAP? Thank you very much for watching. We'll see you guys next time. Goodbye and good night.